Hi, hello, and welcome back to another webinar series of Circuit Digest. In this webinar video, we'll be discussing about a company called Omnipresent Robot Tech. So Omnipresent is a company which develops robots and drones using a very popular solution these days like machine learning, virtual reality, computer vision, etc. to provide video analytics and a lot of other stuff. Another interesting thing about the company is they even have approval for e-commerce drone delivery. So to know more about the company and the service they are providing, we have its CEO here, Mr. Aakash. So let's hear from him. Hi Aakash, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am very good, Aakash. So let's start with the questions because I'm very curious to know about Omnipresent and the types of services and products you're providing. So before we dive into the services and products, can you tell me about the journey of Omnipresent so far? Like, how did all this start?
Yes, so I was working at iRobot Corp, which is one of the biggest robotics companies in the world. It's a public listed, probably the only public listed robotics company. So, so while I was there, I had this idea, and I proposed to them that why don't we expand iRobot's business in India? Huh? And I did a little stint with them, trying to expand their business. I worked as their business head in India. And at that time, I realized that in India, there is a lot of need for new technologies like robots, drones, AI, but there aren't enough people providing it.
Right.
And so around that time, I felt like that, maybe it's a good time to take a chance here. Why don't I start up my own thing over here? And so it's around that time that I started. And, as soon as we started working with a couple of DRDO labs as ISRO. So in fact, we were part of ISRO's Chandrayaan 1 project also, and then subsequently Chandrayaan 2. So we left our jobs in US. We incorporated a company over here, and we started developing robotic solutions for India.
Right.
So that's how we started.
So Akash, if we look at Omnipresent today, you guys are almost everywhere from building drone surveillance systems to writing AI navigation software for Chandrayaan. So Omnipresent has kind of shown its talent in a lot of fields. How would you sum this up? Like what kind of products and services does Omnipresent offer?
The way I see it is that, see how a company like Wipro, they make software for banks, for hospitals, for government. They're in so many industries. So similarly, the way we see it is that, we have been building robots for a variety of industries and a variety of segments. And also we've been building a variety of robots, just like Wipro builds software for a variety of clients, and it also builds a variety of software.
Right.
So think of us as building variety of robots for a variety of companies. And so when you look at that, it's not all that different, because essentially the drones are flying robots and there are some robots on the ground. And in fact, our strength mostly lies in the software that powers the robots. So the software that powers the robot is the AI. So it's this AI part that we build for robots, and it can be used for a variety of robots. So on surface, it might look we are doing a lot of different things, but in actuality, we are essentially building the brain of a robot. And that could be used whether on Chandrayaan or on drones, or we've also done a river cleaning robot. So many things, yeah.
Okay, so from a technical standpoint, from what I understood, Omnipresent works with robots and drones, and you leverage machine learning, AI, and computer vision to do some video analytics, to provide industrial inspections, to work on the defense side and everything. Can you give a bit more insight on it? Like, how does it actually work? Like, how do you make use of machine learning and AI along with drones and robots? And where does this whole computation takes place? Does it take place on the robot itself, or is there a cloud separately which does all the number crunching? How does this whole scenario work?
You can think of robots as a device or a machine that is actually gathering a lot of data. So for example, let's take, for example, you mentioned video analytics. So the video can be coming from a camera. It could also be coming from a robot, or it could also be coming from a drone.
Right.
The video itself can come from a different source. But once the video comes and then you have to make sense out of it, that's where your AI will be used. So to give you some examples of what we've been doing off late, so we've been deployed in a lot of factories, oil refineries, power plants. And at these places, we built something called a nerve center. So the nerve center takes in data from various platforms, whether it's a camera or a drone or a robot, and then it processes those to generate AI behavior. So behavior could be something like detect whether somebody is wearing a mask, or are people following social distancing, or in factory, are people wearing safety gear, or is somebody talking on cell phone in an area that is, sensitive to sparks, like in an oil refinery. Similarly, there can be a variety of behaviors, like detecting crowd behavior, detecting a fire, anything that you think will require some kind of some kind of a noteworthy event can be trained in the nerve center, and then it can generate a notification that can go to the security head on his mobile phone. And so, as I said, the AI processing can be done whether the data is coming from a drone, a CCTV camera, a robot, or even a mobile phone. Sometimes people just share from their mobile phone. That can also be uploaded on our nerve center. So basically, nerve center brings about data from all these sources. And then depending on the user's requirement, we add, a certain type of behavior for them.
Okay. So Aakash, can you tell me how a typical solution like this is deployed? Let's say a client has some requirements. We can take the same oil refinery example to detect person speaking on phone. So how do you start working on this? How do you train your AI and how do you deploy your solutions?
Right. So, we can still, sort of divide it into two parts. So sometimes the clients want only the drone AI, sometimes they want the camera, sometimes they want both.
Okay.
So if they want to deploy drone-based AI, then we usually send a team of a pilot and a drone as well, because right now, you don't have enough drone manufacturers in India. So we've been building our own drones. And we've got quite good at it, although we think that we'll see a lot of growth in software as opposed to hardware. So we have focused quite a bit on the software part, but we deploy a drone, a pilot at the site, and then when to fly, how to fly, for all these things, we give a drone nerve center dashboard interface to the client. The client can request on that dashboard when they want to have a drone flight, in what region, what are the kind of things they want to see. And then our pilot gets that message and they schedule a flight for the drone there. Once the drone collects the data is then processed usually on the cloud, but sometimes, the client might have certain reservations and they may not want the data to go outside the system. So in that case, we can deploy a local server as well. So the data gets processed on the local server and a report is generated. And that report can again be viewed online by the client. So, and as we start getting more and more data, we also keep on training our engine.
Right.
So usually, on day one, maybe we'll have a pre-trained engine over there. But after a period of 1 or 2 months, once we've gotten enough data, we can also add more customized behaviors, which is something the clients might like. So for example, let's say, take a typical scenario. So suppose in an oil refinery, it's very difficult to tell if there is a problem on a vertical structure, like a flare, an oil flare where the residual oil is burning. So in order to inspect that, they may have to, send somebody climbing up there, and, you may even have to turn off the flare, which can, cause a lot of losses to the plants because they need to keep on running continuously. So these kind of inspections we can do, and minute things like cracks, corrosion, structural damage. These things can be detected by the AI and put on the report, so that the client can then take an action. So I would say one of the good places where a robot have a lot of good, justifiable demand is all, dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks. So, for example, it's a dangerous task if you want to inspect a cell phone tower or a power line tower or a 100-meter high chimney flare, or working in mines. This is where a machine should ideally go. So this is where I think a lot of value is there, and even if you are replacing a human job there, you are actually replacing a very risky or sometimes a very dull job or a dangerous job, or a dirty job. So I think that's where a machine is fully justified.
Right. So Aakash, now that we have a good understanding on how a system is deployed, can we take a minute to go back to your Chandrayaan project, the AI navigation software that was built by Omnipresent? You told that you have some details to share.
Right. Well, so in Chandrayaan 2 there was a rover, Pragyan rover, and unfortunately that rover didn't quite come out. But that rover will again be sent on Chandrayaan 3, the same rover. And the software for that rover, how the rover would, once it lands on moon, see, it will take about almost 10 minutes to, to upload one image on moon or download one image from moon. So it's not going to be your 100 Gbps home connection. So how do you operate on moon? So you had to do everything autonomously there. So, once the rover lands on moon, we would have seen a simulated image of the rover like this. So you see, we can see a rover, it's moving on the moon surface. We can plan also a path. And another thing we could do is that we could click on any point, and we could tell, for example, if I click over here, I can tell, let's see here. Okay. So if you see on the left, I can see that this target point, do you see a little ball over there, which is target?
Right.
I don't know if you can see that. See ball, that's the target. Suppose we want to send the rover there, and I want to know, can the rover climb that rock or not? So here I can compute the target distance. It's about 2 meters from me right now. The angle around 11 degrees. The height is 0.2 meters. So it's not very high. It's 0.2 meters. Perhaps my rover can actually climb over it. Also between, any 2 points, I can get distance, angle, and, height, X, Y, Z. So basically any kind of planning, I can do if I want to move my rover from here to here. And as the rover moves and we get feedback, we can also actually drive the robot while sitting here on Earth. So while this image is what the rover is seeing, we will not see this, but we can generate this image from AI. And this image is being generated by 2 initial images that the rover will send us. So it sends us just 2 images like we see from our left and right eye. And from those 2 images, we make this 3D
single image,
on which we can drive. Yeah. So this is what we had done. And so this is the software that Chandrayaan rover is actually going to use. Once it lands on moon, then our software is going to help it navigate and guide across the moon.
Right. That's really interesting. Just a quick question here. You just told that the rover will be sending images from 2 different cameras. So are we getting only 2-dimensional data here? Like, how do you convert it into 3D? Do we have a LiDAR or radar system also, or how does the whole mapping work?
Very similar. Yeah, it's very similar to. No, we don't have a LiDAR on Chandrayaan rover.
Okay.
It's very similar to how humans see 3D. So this rover has two cameras, there's one camera here, one here. If you see, I'm moving this point Y.
Okay.
It has two cameras, just like two eyes. And from the two eyes, it sends us two images. Maybe I can.
Okay.
So you see, these are the two images that the rover sent us. These are the two
Okay.
images. See, this is one that the left eye sees, one the right eye sees. And just to get these two images, it's going to take 10 minutes from moon.
Right.
So initially we are going to wait 10 minutes before the rover starts. We download these two images. But then we can't keep on getting images because every time we can't wait 10 minutes.
Right.
So how do we control the rover with such a big timeline? See, that's the challenge. So this is what I was trying to show over here. See, if you remember these two images, from those now this 3D has been generated.
Right. Okay.
Can you now see those three vertical blocks are also here, the ones you saw in the image.
Right.
And it's from there that we've generated this 3D. And now we can navigate in 3D. So we can command the rover from here, from Earth, and we'll know what it is doing on moon. So this was the idea. See, this is how, India gets our projects done at, you can say,
cheap.
1/10 of the cost of ISRO.
Right.
Because we do these innovative things. We didn't say that, no, give us the best, most expensive LiDAR and this, that's solution. So
okay, fine. So, I don't think there are not many companies working on drones, AI, and ML, at least not in India. So, the whole solution can be looked at in two ways. One is the hardware part, and other is the software part, as you told. Now, what kind of challenges do you face when you're developing such solutions, be it the hardware part or the software part, especially when you're doing it from India? What kind of challenges do you normally face?
Well, I think one of the reasons why we are doing both hardware and software is also because, there is no standardization right now in this industry. So as far as robots are concerned, drones are concerned, it's not like I can just buy one Intel-based computer and just load Windows and then run my apps or whatever.
Right.
Because there's that lack of standardization, we probably end up doing more than what we really need to do. Nevertheless, I think whatever it takes to solve the problem as an entrepreneur, one should be ready to do that. Having said that, it is definitely one of the problems is to make sure that, how do we make sure our hardware and software are compatible and also generic enough? So that definitely presents a challenge. There is also a challenge in terms of hiring. We want to hire, and I know companies in our domain, they want to hire, but they can't get the right kind of people.
Right.
So maybe there are jobs are slowing down in software industry, but in terms of robotics and AI, I think jobs are growing. They're growing exponentially. We aren't getting so much. I would say that probably our universities also need to catch up with what's going on in the industry, and they are they're already catching up. And then so I think that's another challenge, trying to find the right kind of people. And we often end up basically training all our people. So they might just be really bright people who are doing a little bit of AI ML at college, but when they come here, they get trained, and after a few months they start delivering. So.
Fine. So another interesting thing that I would like to discuss here is about your e-commerce drone delivery trial. So Omnipresent is one of the few companies in India to have got government approval to do those trials. So how are the trials going so far, and when do you think like e-commerce drone delivery system will actually gain momentum and become a reality?
Right. So this is a drone delivery trials we've done for our one of our e-com partners, ShopX. We've also been working with a few other major e-commerce players. So this is a drone delivery being done for a box of shoes from one place to another, from one warehouse to another warehouse in Bangalore.
Mm-hmm.
So these two warehouses were about a few kilometers away,
Mm-hmm.
and from one warehouse to another warehouse we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But coming back to this permissions part, so now what government has done is that they've selected a few companies and group of companies to whom these permissions have been granted to do
Mm-hmm.
drone delivery trials.
Mm-hmm.
So, as part of these trials, we'll be attempting deliveries as large as 100 kilometers,
Mm-hmm.
carrying 15 kg payload.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it can have a lot of can have a lot of repercussions, because if you see what government has done recently, that now they've allowed drones up to 500 kgs to be flown.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know if you know, this recent regulation has just come out last week,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're allowing drones up to 500 kgs
Mm-hmm.
to be used. And they can be used in green zones, and green zones will practically cover more than 80% of the country.
Okay.
And even in other zones with special permissions, you'll be able to fly.
Mm-hmm.
So with that kind of thing, that kind of payload capacity, I
Mm-hmm.
think the drones will actually give much better costing and performance when compared to, let's say, a small truck or a small
Mm-hmm.
vehicle that's, let's say, carrying that kind of payload. But yes, with this new regulations in place, I think it will cause a lot of disruption in drone industry, and a lot of new companies will grow here. I think it's a very good time to get into this segment. So,
Mm-hmm. So, what are the hurdles you're facing right now? Like, why is this still not a reality? Drone delivery in India, when do you think would be a reality?
so see, one of the biggest hurdles were definitely regulations,
Mm-hmm.
which government has just come out with, and I think the new regulations seem very promising.
Mm-hmm.
It is still in draft. It will be ratified in about 30 or 45 days.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is probably one of the biggest hurdles, which I'm really happy that the government is kind of got around to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once that happens, we'll also see a lot of investor interest in this segment, where investors will love to get into this field. Companies like Flipkart and Swiggy and Amazon, they will all love to get in here. And once these big names also start getting in, then you will automatically see this sort of as that snowballing effect, and you will see it
Mm-hmm.
becoming a reality very soon. Having said that,
Mm-hmm.
it will probably still not be like a drone knocking on your window to
Right.
deliver your lunch, because there will still be a few security concerns, and it might be that drones might have a designated
Landing and takeoff,
landing
please.
center in your neighborhood. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's your guard room. Maybe it's a
Mm-hmm.
guard room of your apartment complex, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
it is some designated area. And
Mm-hmm.
from there, a local boy could deliver, on his cycle or bike or something, or a
Mm-hmm.
guard could deliver, if it lands there. So, but that kind of
Mm-hmm.
scenario, I think, will definitely happen. And
Mm-hmm.
regulations are now coming in place, and the technology is there. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason why it will not happen now.
Right. So Akash, another question is about the market for all these. Like, how do you see market for drone delivery systems, drone surveillance, drone-based defense systems? Is India ready for such a market? Like, are the companies and industries here ready to adapt this technology?
Well, you can see already, a lot of big names have got into drones. So Tata has a drone company, Reliance has bought a drone company, Adani got into defense drones. So we can already sense that a lot of big names are getting in here because they sense the market. What I can tell you, that just in drone delivery, there is a huge market. Because uh, there's enough market to set up a couple more big delivery companies itself. Companies like DHL, a company like FedEx or something can be set up just for drone deliveries.
Okay.
So that there's already a huge market for that. defense is going to be also extremely big market because most of our future combats and things will start happening via robots and drones. Uh, Next big market is also consumer drones. So see, currently most consumer drones are either coming from China and
Right.
but now with government putting harder restrictions on Chinese drones, there's a big gap created here. Who's going to build all these drones for consumers in India? So I think that's that is another big sector. Drone-based agriculture will be another big sector because half of our land mass is agri land, and drones have been shown to boost agri yield by up to 20-25%. So just imagine the kind of impact it can have on our GDP. In fact, there's a recent I was in a recent discussion with one of the government representatives, and they actually wanted a drone for every village in India.
Okay.
And we have like some 6 lakh villages, and the village in the drone can be operated locally. So that means it can also generate another, if there are 2 technicians per village, it can generate over 1 million jobs, just drone technicians and pilots. And then they could serve the village by using it for agriculture and also using it for other things like safety, security, and so forth. But just agriculture itself is going to be a huge segment. The next big segment will be, which is already big, is sort of asset management for industries and construction. It's also useful for insurance companies, to assess how this structure was made, what is the progress,
Right.
and then maintenance of things like cell phone tower, electrical tower, pipelines, railway tracks, roads. So in fact, NHAI, the National Highway Authority, they have just issued a circular saying that all our highway projects have to be now mandatorily be inspected and monitored via drones. So all the major highway projects have to be. So I think there are a lot of segments that are going to get big. You will definitely see 2-3 unicorns in drone space in India in the coming 3 to 4 years time. So I think it's a really good time to get in here.
Right. So Aakash, my last question for you would be for any budding engineers who might be watching this video. So as even you might have realized as a professor, today young engineers are more fascinated by drones, artificial intelligence, ML, and such kind of things. So as an industry expert and as a professor, what would be your word of advice for them? Like, how can they set up a proper career in this field?
So see, there are sort of 3 career paths you could take in this field. One is that you could do, if you're more into research, you could just do a research academic work. You could be be teaching or conducting research in this sector, making new discoveries, inventions. There also, the prospects are very good because you can create your own invention, patent it, get royalty for it, and then you can teach what you've learned. So if you're that kind, then obviously you want to if you want to build a career in any case in this stream, you want to take some courses in your college that are related to, let's say, basic courses in machine learning, AI, computer vision, robotics. You can see there are so many of them now available online. So the great thing now is that it doesn't matter whether you are in a IIT or you're in a village, or you are in US studying in MIT or somewhere, because all the resources are now available online. If you have a good internet connection, go ahead. You can even get an online degree in AI and machine learning and robotics and these areas. And once you do that, if you want to get into academics, then obviously you want to do a PhD. You can find a good place to do a PhD. Or you could even work for organizations like ISRO or IISC or DRDO. Huh? That's where you don't have to do a PhD necessarily, but you can do some good research work there. And if you like the comfort of a government the perks of a government job, um, and then I plus also want to do good work, I would definitely say you can go to ISRO, IISC, DRDO. One of the things you could try is that you could try to apply for an internship there while you're in college.
Right.
Now, but for you to get an internship, you want to do some project on your own. So do something on your own. You take up this online course, talk to your professor, do some course on, do something, build a simple project on your own, put it out on internet, put it on your LinkedIn profile, and then share it with people at ISRO, DRDO, and so forth. And that way, you can have an academic career. The second is that you can, join a company and be part of, solving the problem as it has to be solved in the real world, which has its own challenges. So if you like that, then also again, I think the path is similar. You take a few courses, do some project on your own, but then this time you try to apply for an internship, let's say at one of the robotics companies, or one of the drone companies that are there. So that's one way. And then once you've done the internship, and if you've done good work, I'm sure there are a lot of jobs and companies would love to retain you.
Right.
And then the third is you could try doing your own startup. And I would say the best time to do startup is just right after your college. Don't take up that job, whatever package you are getting. Just tell them, okay, I can join you, but give me another year's time. I want to try something on my own. If not, I'll come back and most companies will appreciate that. And if you've been a startup founder, trust me, the companies will value that. A lot of companies will value that, the fact that you've run a startup, even if you failed, you learn so much. So my advice is that you can defer your job after the college, unless if you're really in need of it, then go ahead, do it. Maybe after a few years you can do that, but otherwise defer it for 1 or 2 years. And if your parents can support you for 1 or 2 years after your college, I think it's a great time, because in that 1-2 years time you can build something that can become very big.
Right.
So I think those are the things, and you can, as I said, I think the timing is very good to get into this field.
So Aakash, I am done with all my questions here. Is there anything you would like to add on to this interview?
First of all, let me thank you. I think you've asked all the right questions, and got into a lot of details. So most of it got addressed. My only, if only one last thing I could add is to just tell people that that I think this is a very good time, to get into this industry. So if you're looking for a good career prospect, interesting work, definitely look at robotics, AI, drones. It's a great time to be here.
Right. I think it would really be motivating to see people like you and hear it from people like you to step in and start working. So thank you, Aakash. Thank you so much for your time and joining us today.